Story 1. I had a nightmare a couple of years ago, and I still remember some parts. I was in a city where there had been an outbreak of a disease. Infected people began to leak black fluid from their eyes and noses and attacked those who were not infected. A few days after the outbreak, I was walking through a part of the city that was completely deserted when I very faintly heard someone crying. I approached and discovered. The sound came from a backyard. To see who it was, I had to climb a high fence. When I entered the backyard, I was horrified. There was a crying child of about 3 years old on a leash tied to a pole. I did not dare approach because the child was leaking black fluid from the nose. I woke up after that and was still shaken. The idea that the parents had to leave their child chained to a pole outside stayed with me for days. Story 2. When I wake up in the morning, I usually have about 30 more minutes before I have to get out of bed. If I am dreaming before I wake and go back to sleep, I can usually continue the dream. Last night I dreamed I was in a resort that was similar to Jurassic Park. When I went back to sleep this morning, I continued the dream and began a relationship with an attractive man who worked at the resort. Story 3. I dreamt I was part of an Eastern European resistance movement that had to speak in code and hide in abandoned manors in the forest to plan attacks against a fascist regime. We enlisted the Pope to help us. But when we went to meet him, he had double-crossed us because the regime we were fighting somehow knew the Pope was gay and was going to tell everyone. I woke up not knowing whether my resistance group had been executed or had escaped. I call it my gay Pope dream. Story 4. I was friends with Jesus in the modern day and he was sound. He was not preachy, just one of the lads. Story 5. I learned I could fly, but I had to teach myself. I woke up just as I was gearing up for the big test to see how high I could go. I forced myself back to sleep, and let me tell you, flying in a dream is way too much fun. Story 6. I used to have lucid dreams in my early to mid-20s. As soon as I realized I was asleep, I would start flying or rise to the ceiling because it was a cool way to test it. Then my immediate thought would be who I should pretend to sleep with, and the excitement over that possibility woke me up every time. Story 7. I was exploring a jungle with a group of friends. We discovered a temple, but it was dark, so we set up camp. I was in charge of gathering dry wood and leaves for the fire. While cutting my way through vines with a machete, I heard someone in the group screaming my name in terror. I woke up to my mom yelling my name and telling me to get the fuck up already. I never found out what that temple was. I have never watched adventure movies like Indiana Jones or Jumanji, nor have I played any Uncharted games. Story 8. A few months before I got married, I had a dream that Bill Murray was attending my wedding and asked to make a toast. I happily agreed. Then, before I could hear the toast, I woke up. Story 9. I once dreamt that all my family and closest friends were on the world's largest cruise ship. Along the way, we were exposed to radioactive waste that gave us all superpowers or other mutations. I remember vividly being able to move objects with my mind, and I threw donuts at my brother, whose skin had turned as hard as stone. One girl on the cruise, whom we all disliked for reasons I cannot remember, received a random and useless mutation. She grew a thick lizard tail, like an overfed leopard gecko. She cried about how ugly she felt, and we could only laugh. Then I woke up. Story 10. A long time ago, I had a dream that there were ghosts living in my family's garage. Nowhere else, just the garage. I became friends with one, but she could not speak to me, leave the property, or show any facial expressions that would not be considered terrifying. My ghost friend and I were playing on the porch when two men tried to break into the house. She tried to stop them by scaring them with a terrifying face and a blood-curdling scream right in their faces. I could not see the face she made, but I somehow knew it was there, and all I could hear was the scream. The people trying to rob the house ran away, but instead of celebrating, I curled up and started crying because the scream had terrified me. I loved that ghost, and I had forgotten that her purpose was to scare people. She had done it to protect me and the house. She tried to cheer me up the best way she could. Then I woke up. I knew it was a dream, but I did not want to leave my ghost friend alone, knowing the last thing she saw of me was me crying after she scared me. I went back to sleep and re-entered the dream, which had jumped forward several years. The garage still had a couple of ghosts, but far fewer, and the rest seemed oblivious to humans. I went into the attic and found some pictures of myself at about the age I had been when I was friends with the ghost. In one picture, I saw a faint image of her face standing next to me. I went down from the attic and woke up. I never got to tell the ghost that I forgave her, and I still feel some emotional attachment to her. It was probably the best nightmare I have ever had, and one of the dreams I most want to return to so I can tell her there are no hard feelings. Note: I wrote what I remembered from this dream on a piece of paper before sleep, later memorized it, and wrote a short story based on it. I have since lost those papers. I appreciate the interest, but please do not wish that we meet in real life. I would feel physically ill if I saw a ghost. Story 11. I died in one of my dreams. It was startling. I remained dead for about 15 seconds, which was interesting. Story 12. My son is in the Air Force and has been stationed overseas for the entire 3.5 years of his service. He is serving 6 years instead of 4. Whenever I dream about him, I want to go back to sleep to see him a little longer. Story 13. I had one this morning. I am a heavy sleeper, and whatever happens around me tends to enter my dreams. It is a curse at times. This morning I received an America's Missing broadcast emergency response alert at 3:30 in the morning, and my dream went from being okay to my friends being incinerated by a nuclear explosion. I was the only survivor, and just as I was about to leave the bunker to see the devastation, I woke up and turned off the alert. Story 14. I had a nightmare about being a teenage girl with a group of friends on bikes, hiding from and hunting a shadow monster that killed dogs. We tracked it to an abandoned house and tried to rescue the dogs, but one of them started barking. I had to calm it down before the monster got us, and my friends screamed from another room. Then I woke up, and I will never know if those dogs survived. Story 15. I have recently become disabled. I dream of walking without pain or a limp. I am so disappointed when I wake and my disability is still there. Story 16. I have no idea. All my dreams fade away 20 seconds after I try to tell someone. The most I ever remember is the feeling that the dream was amazing and that I want to go back. But I never can. Story 17. Most nights I very rarely have nightmares, and even those are very interesting. Life inside my head is much more entertaining than reality. Story 18. Oh boy, here we go. I had a dream that I still remember vividly, even though I was 9 or 10 at the time. I was walking down the street and met my primary school teacher, a cute old lady with the driest humor. We talked for a bit and she invited me over for tea. I entered her house. She made the tea and we sat in an area with 3 walls of bookcases. Between them were 2 somewhat fancy chairs and a round low coffee table. She told me she had brought me there for a reason, then did something like magic or pressed a button and a wall opened exactly like in Dexter's laboratory. She led me inside and I saw many people doing various things. Some tied to metal hospital tables, some in tubes. Everything had a technological blue glow. I walked through a huge mall-like revolving door. I realized I had dozed off after walking, so it must have had a sedative. When I woke up, I was tied to a metal table and had no skin. I could see all my muscles moving, twitching, and contracting while I fought to break free. The teacher came by and told me, "Don't worry. It's all part of the procedure." I saw other people in the same state. After a while she released me, handed me a dark blue spandex suit, and told me to put it on. Once I did, I could move like a superhero, run very fast, jump very high, and be very agile. She said I was a recruit and that she had a mission for me. I remember being teleported to a place near my home with a woman I knew as my partner. Our task was to catch a black, nearly invisible, shape-shifting dog. I aimed at it with a bulky black blaster, and then I woke up. My younger self was very upset about not becoming a superhero. Story 19. I had a crush for 3 years. She rejected me, yet I dreamed of being with her as a couple. I knew it would never happen in real life, so when I woke up I forced myself to fall back asleep. Unfortunately, that was the last of it. Story 20. I had a dream that I had a bunch of birds and snakes living in my kitchen. They were my pets, and I cuddled my snakes on the couch while my birds relaxed, flying on top of the fridge. The dream was so vivid that when I woke up I thought, crap, I left my snakes on the couch with the birds. I hoped they had not eaten one. I was disappointed when I realized there were no animals in my home, but relieved that my imaginary snakes had not eaten my birds. Story 21. My situation was a bit different. I once had a vivid nightmare about a zombie apocalypse. In the dream, I was running from a horde and ducked into a random house. Time passed and I put my head down to rest while listening to growls outside. At that exact second, I woke up and was relieved that it had been only a dream because it felt so real. About 10 minutes later, I fell back asleep and the dream resumed. I remember thinking, oh my God, this isn't a dream, while still in the dream. The rest was even more vivid and terrifying because I was convinced it was real. It was a tough night, but it was interesting how the dream picked up where it left off and convinced me the events were actually happening. My brief 10-minute waking period seemed like part of the dream. Story 22. I think that when I wake up from a pleasant, ordinary dream, I try to continue it the next night as I fall asleep. Story 23. I had a dream about time travel, but I had to look and be genetically different. I went back in time, but I woke up in the middle of the night when it started. Story 24. Once I dreamed I was in my hometown airport, a large one, when a shooting began down the terminal. I used to work at an airport, so I found the nearest employee and had them open the closest door to the tarmac. We began evacuating people as the shooting drew nearer. Somehow I was the last person through the door. When I reached the tarmac, there was not a single person in sight. Even the noises from inside the airport had stopped. Above me, the clouds were blacker than night and purple lightning struck frequently. As I walked into the middle of the tarmac, staring at the sky, airplanes began crashing all around me, like a movie. The sight took my breath away, and not in a good way. It was dreadful and dramatic. I can still see it if I focus. I woke up just as a Boeing 737 crashed right on top of me. I have a vivid imagination. Story 25. It was a dream where there were no debts, no stress, no pressure, no boss, no monotonous job, and no homework. Oh, you wanted details? I have no idea. I only remember the weightlessness of being stress-free and being in a hardware store. Story 26. Playing bumper cars with Voldemort, surrounded by Laffy Taffy. I wish I were kidding. Story 27. Many of the other comments describe dreams full of fantasy and wonder, but mine was just a vivid wet dream that got interrupted. Story 28. The end of the world happened on a beach. I was getting ice cream for my family when suddenly the sun turned purple, began spinning, and sank below the horizon. The sky followed and was replaced by darkness. Gravity failed. We fell and could not move. The world around us flattened and drifted toward a dark rift at the edge. A voice began calling names, and people were sucked into the night. Suddenly it was my turn. I glided to the edge, freaking out, and as I fell over the horizon, I realized I no longer had a body. I was only a gaze traveling through space. It lasted a very long time. We passed beautiful planets and left the solar system. Then we crossed the galaxy and left it as well. Far ahead in the darkness, faint lights appeared. Stars and constellations I had never seen before. I knew then that they were waiting for us, and even if it took forever, we would reach them. Once we did, all our questions would be answered. What lies out there and why we exist. We were getting closer. I could feel it would not be long. Then my brain chose to wake me. I thought desperately, no, not now. Just a moment more. But it was too late. The dream was gone. I was so angry. Sometimes I think my own brain laughs at me. Story 29. I had a dream where I was an undercover agent working for a secret agency. I carried out dozens of assassinations of high-level targets. I received a task to kill a low-level target inside an office. I was suspicious, so as a precaution I took extra explosives and ammunition. I sneaked into the building at night and cautiously proceeded to the room where the target was working. Through the glass door I could see him working on his personal computer. I used a silenced pistol to eliminate him. After the assassination, I wondered why I had been sent to kill a low-level target, so I snooped around his computer and stumbled upon classified files linking the president of the country to actions that could destroy the whole nation. They were monitoring the computer and I was caught reading those files. Backup agents had been assigned to kill the target if I failed, and they were ordered to terminate me immediately. Before I could process the information, the other agents attacked. 3 agents entered the room. I was behind the desk, so I removed the pin from a grenade and detonated it through the wall, killing them. That began my quest to stop the president. I entered a heavily armed base to confront him. The action scenes were intense. I reached the president's room and threw a grenade inside. Somehow he escaped and went outside the base. I followed him. People were running away from something and ash was falling from the sky. A volcano was erupting and lava was flowing toward me. I saw the president on a platform on the volcano protected by some kind of shield. I jumped over rocks carried by the lava to reach the president, and then I woke up. I tried to go back to sleep to see if I had killed the president, but I could not. That was about 10 years ago. Story 30. I awoke in a white bed in a building that combined elements of a White House, a plantation house, and a pantheon. I could not understand how all 3 could coexist as one, but my mind made it so. I got out of bed and noticed I was wearing a red flannel and blue jeans and had short hair. I walked outside. All I could see was fog and a few pine trees. A slight breeze grazed my face, cool and gentle, sending goosebumps down my arms. I was standing on a moon pool. I looked down. The stars and moon shone in a pale blue haze. I looked up and noticed a slender figure at the edge of the fog. I watched her as she drew closer and began to make out more detail. She had long black silky hair that swayed with the breeze. A few steps more revealed a white dress, and when the fog cleared, I saw her pale skin and an oval, very beautiful face. We stared at each other. Then she said, "It's time to go," in a soft but commanding voice. I replied, "No, not yet," in a stern but not hostile tone. We exchanged glances for several moments. Her eyes seemed to scream, "You're going to regret this." But I held to my decision. Just then I noticed a small demon dog at her side. Then I woke up in a cold sweat in the middle of the night as 9-year-old me. I had dreamt I was much older than I actually was. I wanted to go back so badly and figure out what it all meant. Where did she want to take me and why had I stepped into that body? To this day, the dream remains vivid in my mind. Story 31. Okay, so I did not wake up in the middle of this dream. I actually got through most of it and decided it had to end before it could truly end. If that does not make much sense, I understand, so here is the story. A few years ago, I was going through a rough time, so to try to relax, I took an afternoon nap. My dream began in a white void where a woman at a reception desk told me I was dreaming. I had been stressed. Much of my work bore no fruit and I was borderline depressed. She said she worked for a company that operates between reality and dreams. They offer services to people under extreme stress, allowing them to have full control of their dreams so they can relax. They provide the service only once to each person. She told me I would be allowed full control of my dream and gave me a lesson on the time difference between reality and dream time. She then handed me a contract that said I would remain in the dream for 3 dream years. If I died, I would wake up. If I decided to wake up, everything I had done in the dream would be undone. There were other conditions like that. She also said she had to make sure I did not do anything too extreme that could harm my mind, so she would act as my supervisor. When I was given full control of the dream, I could perform godlike tasks. I created my own universe and personally developed galaxies and solar systems. So I would not waste time. I completed all those tasks in a planetary-scale SimCity-style simulation. I spent the first year crafting my ideal reality and making countless celestial bodies. At a certain point, I even designed and brought to life various species and created humans. I became the god of my own universe. During the second year, I watched most of my creations bloom and evolve on their own. There was one solar system I grew especially fond of. To fully immerse myself in that experience, I gave myself a human form and explored the planets I had created, seeing them from a human perspective instead of from the eyes of a god. I did not want to waste my 3 years, so because I was in full control, I manipulated time while in human form to experience a lifetime in the span of a few seconds of the 3 years I had been given. My supervisor stayed near my side so I would not be alone or do anything extreme, and she allowed this since I was not breaking the contract, only bending it. I witnessed the evolution of my planet's life and the development of its civilization. I wandered a world I had populated with ruins, fictional creatures, wondrous environments, and the cities my creations built. I interacted with the people I had made, including demi-humans and intelligent monsters. Felt like an anime. I traveled from planet to planet and experienced a science fiction life of traversing the stars and discovering new species. My supervisor became a traveling companion and we became good friends. In my second year, I lived for thousands of years exploring my universe alongside that friend. Near the end of the second year, a galactic war broke out. People discovered who I was and tried to hunt me down, seeing me as a failed creator. My own creations sought my destruction. I did not have the heart to destroy everything I had made. Erasing it would have broken me. That did not stop them from trying to kill me. If I were killed, I would immediately wake up, so I tried to escape. To my dismay, my supervisor was caught in the crossfire and was fatally injured. Even though I had full control of the dream, I could not heal her because she was not part of the dream I controlled, so my power had no effect on her. I did the only thing I could think of at that moment. I ended my dream 1 year early. As the contract had said, everything that happened in the dream, its existence, and its effects would be undone. If I ended the dream, then she would not die. I watched my creation, my ideal universe, disappear before my eyes. Even though I had not had the heart to do it before, I had to convince myself they were figments of my imagination and not real. Seconds before complete disappearance, I bid farewell to my world. After everything was gone, I found myself back in the white void with the woman waiting for me. She thanked me for giving up the final year of near omnipotence to save her life. She was grateful but upset because the contract had been broken and the organization had failed to fully relieve my stress. She blamed herself for the experience being cut short because of her injury. I told her it was all right and that all dreams end anyway, and I probably would have spent the last year wasting time. She explained that I was beginning to wake up and might not find my way back to this room again. Though we had grown close and shared many experiences, we both held back tears. She stood, bowed, and thanked me, wishing me good fortune when I woke and saying she hoped to see me again. After that, everything went white. I woke up immediately and did not feel stressed or tired at all. I retained full memories of the dream and returned to work with an optimistic attitude. Though I still have ups and downs, ever since that dream I have been having fun and enjoying my life. It was the greatest dream I have ever had. Story 32. I had a dream a few years ago that I was at a party and met a girl. We hit it off and connected on many things, but then I realized I was dreaming. I told her I was disappointed because I had just realized it was a dream. She did not believe me, so I asked her what her last name was. She stared at me blankly. I said she did not know because my brain had not given her a last name, and that we should just enjoy the time we had together. Then I woke up and fell back asleep. I was at another house party. I walked around aimlessly until I saw her. She remembered me, and we spent the rest of the dream hanging out and holding hands. Afterwards, it kind of messed me up for a few days. Story 33. I had a dream in which a girl brought me into her room. She threw me onto her bed, and then I woke up. I had never tried so hard to fall asleep as I did that night. Story 34. Okay. I was dreaming of something strange that turned into the concept for a story I am writing. There were two islands shaped like crescent moons. The inner parts faced each other, creating a circle of ocean between them. Each island had a large nation and several smaller settlements that tried to win their favor and trust. The smaller settlements sought the protection of the larger cities. In the center of the islands lived a large sea monster that occasionally attacked people, so the cities had huge walls with monster heads on them to deter it. Each city had its own politics, social views, traditions, and so on. The most interesting thing, in my opinion, was that even though the cities competed, they still cooperated to maintain a stable economy and ensured that each had the materials to withstand attacks. I wanted to know more when I woke. I wrote down everything I could remember, and a year later I am still adding to the setting. I just reached 10,000 words today, and I am really happy about it. Story 35. I'm in a long-distance relationship and dream about my significant other all the time. When I wake in the middle of a dream, I try hard to fall back asleep immediately in hopes I'll conjure the dream and see his sweet face a little longer. Story 36. A group of people and I started a band named Opalescent, an 8-person a cappella group that sang about global warming, multi-level marketing, and politics. The group included 3 boys, 4 girls, and me. It felt so real that when I woke up I was extremely upset. I am not Pan. I am talking about the other people. Story 37. When you're too poor to watch a scary movie at the theater, you try to induce a nightmare and be entertained by it. Story 38. As a child, I had a recurring dream that if you took a shower, you would turn into one of those creepy talking cars from the old Chevron commercials. I found those dreams interesting, to say the least. Story 39. Years ago, when Valve released the Orange Box, I was a big Team Fortress 2 fan and played it a lot. One day, I must have played too much. I dreamt I was the pyro, that I was actually in the game, literally setting everything and everyone on fire. When I woke up, I was still pumped with adrenaline. Oh, how I long for that dream again. Story 40. I wrote this dream down soon after waking one night. I am walking in a wooded area and see a man standing stock still. Something is clearly wrong. As I get near, he begins to move. I notice his arm is blackened and missing a hand. I say, "Sir, are you all right?" He ignores me and walks forward in jerky movements, waving his arms as if feeling his way around. I call to him, but he does not answer. I realize he has been in a fire or explosion and cannot see or hear. He is desperately trying to find help. I look around and see the husk of a house that either burned down or possibly exploded. I am afraid to touch the man because it might cause him great pain. I start calling for help when a van drives up. I am relieved, but 3 men get out and begin mocking us. They say they are time travelers and joke that I will burn in that house along with the injured man, implying they will take me back in time, so I burn too. I walk quickly away to put distance between myself and them. I feel bad for the other man, but I am not sure there is anything I can do. Some time later, my wife and I are walking together. I am still anxious about what happened. We walk along a tunnel of trees. At the end of the tunnel, we see a house burning, but the scene runs in reverse until the house is completely intact. Now I am incredibly anxious because I know that is the house the time traveler said I would burn in, and I cannot stop myself from walking toward it. Suddenly, an astronaut is at the end of the tunnel and he is running toward us. My feelings about him are complex. He may be trying to help us, but there is a feeling of inevitability, as if he cannot help or will cause something terrible to happen. As he approaches, it grows darker until I can no longer see anything, but I can hear the crunch of our footsteps and the heavy breathing of the astronaut as he runs toward us. I feel something touch me, and before I can tell whether it is the astronaut or my wife, I wake up, terrified. Story 41. I am a regular lucid dreamer. Dreams in which you know you are dreaming are disappointing. Dreams in which you do not realize you are dreaming tend to be more interesting. Once I convinced myself in a dream that I could levitate by jumping and crossing my legs, but only if I started halfway down a staircase. After one short ambulance trip and a fractured coccyx, I am now pretty much aware that every dream is a dream. Story 42. Cheap, almost instant travel to different worlds on a portal ride similar to the Willy Winks boat ride but less scary. Laughing out loud. I remember the moon was almost entirely populated by vampires. I cannot remember much else, but I visited many places and woke up feeling confused and cheated. Story 43. It was a while ago. My mother and I were running from some sort of huge monster. The entire United Kingdom was too. We ran out the back door of Morrison's and bought a melon, then ran to London and stayed in a derelict, abandoned house that looked exactly like the others on the street, 3 stories high, brick and with all the traditional British features. I thought it was catching up, but I did not know what it was. We kept trying to stay about 2 kilometers ahead, but it moved swiftly. I woke up after that. Damn it. Story 44. I had a dream that I was a billionaire who had made my money from professional mattress testing. I dreamed for ages that I was sleeping all day, woke up without realizing it, and then could not get back to sleep. In other words, it was a strange-sounding dream, but it was great compared to some of the things I usually dream about. Story 45. I have had dreams where I find treasure or something valuable. I keep discovering items, picking them up, and trying to keep track of everything as I search for more. In most of those dreams, I think that I am rich and can do whatever I want with my life, and I feel ecstatic. Then I always wake up in the middle of grabbing more treasure and realize none of it exists. The euphoria disappears quickly. I try to fall back asleep to return to the dream and feel that same emotion again, but it never works. Story 46. In the dream, I got into a huge fight with some girls who are not my friends anymore in real life. It was late at night outside the school. One of them, whom I had just met and who had been very mean to me in real life, ran off crying after I told her to stop being so mean and to go away. I am feisty, but only if someone provokes me first. I went home and saw on the news that she was missing. Because she is popular, everyone was looking for her. Word got out that I had been the last to see her, and everyone blamed me. I received death threats. I woke up in real life, but I wanted to see how it would end, so I went back to sleep. I looked for her in the dream, but no one could find her. Weeks later, the police said I was not in any trouble because there was evidence I had not killed her. Everyone at school, however, wanted me gone. A week later, when I could no longer take it, Shane Dawson said he was doing a documentary about me. We did an interview, and I told my side and how much everyone hated me. A week later, I killed myself in the dream, and Shane Dawson released the documentary the next day, showing that I was truly innocent. What a crazy dream. Story 47. Yes. I had a dream 3 years ago that I was living in an attic apartment in Paris, with windows opening onto the site. The sun streamed into a cramped kitchen with a small cafe table and chairs I had bought on clearance. I was making scrambled eggs and orange juice for my 2 daughters, and I felt very happy. When I woke up, I felt a sense of loss so deep I began to cry, even though I knew those things were not real. It has been years, and I still remember the dream. Story 48. I've had many of these dreams, but I can't remember the details. I do remember one time when I wanted to wake up from the dream. I was being chased through a house by a man with a gun. He trapped me in a room, and when he shot me, I woke up. I went back to sleep and re-experienced the whole scene. It was not pleasant. Story 49. Literally last night, I had a dream that I was about to hook up with 2 extremely sexy women at a party. The point I remember is that we were heading upstairs and talking flirty and dirty. Then, as soon as we got into the bedroom, one of them started feeling me up and kissing my neck, and suddenly I was back in bed all by my miserable self. Story 50. I once dreamed that people all over the world were finding identical strangers, and shortly afterward one of the 2 would go missing. In the dream, a friend in real life told me that whatever was causing these disappearances was located in downtown Toronto. A small group of friends and I, some real and some imagined, convinced a school bus driver to take us there, but I woke up before we arrived. I still do not know what caused the disappearances. Story 51. I just did. I was eating fried chicken. Dream fried chicken has no fat or cholesterol. Story 52. I was upstairs in my room. The hallway from my room runs straight for about 20 feet and then turns 90 degrees to the right. The upstairs hallway continues for about the same length, and the stairs go down at a hairpin turn to the right. Instead of a wall next to the top platform of the stairs, the landing continued. On that platform, I saw my mother's older sister and her daughter playing with her child. As I watched them play on the carpet of the landing, it seemed as if we were outside playing in the grass and on the carpet at the same time. As I approached them, I noticed something at the bottom of the stairs in the corner of my eye. I looked back down the hairpin, following the rail of the stairs that banks back to the left. At the bottom, offset by a few feet, I saw a wooden park bench. It was oak and old, weathered to a gray color. Rustic and rusted, it stood there. I turned to look at it straight on, and on the bench I saw my grandmother sitting there, enjoying a breeze and the grassy interior that had become my house. I turned back to my cousin, her child, and my aunt and said, "Do you see her?" I pointed toward my grandmother. They asked, Who? Who are you talking about? I said, it's Medzmama, which means grandmother in Armenian. It's Medzmama right there, and again pointed to where she was. They said no one was there and were looking exactly where I was pointing. I looked back and she was there. I said, forget them. I'm going to her. I ran down the stairs, and as I ran, I truly felt myself become a child again with small, awkward motor skills, filled with joy to see those who loved me and whom I loved. I reached her at the bottom and embraced her in the warmest hug. I cried in her arms. She looked different, much younger and fuller. When I looked up at her, I am 6 feet 5 inches tall and she was 5 feet 9 inches, and she looked at me the way she had for the 15 years I knew her. It was the most peaceful sleep I have ever had. I have had dreams of my grandmother since her passing, but they diminished the further I got from the day she died. This was the first dream she appeared in after 7 years, completely out of nowhere, and it made me cry with joy that morning. I told my parents, and my mother, whose mother this grandmother was, teared up and said, I'm glad she came to you to protect you. When she passed away, I had a missing hug feeling. It sounds silly, but I yearned for her hug and how she had protected me. That feeling lasted for months. The hug in this dream was profound. It was integral and something I could not have foreseen. This dream was in October of 2018. Strange to be a grown man and have this happen. I miss you, Medzmama. Thank you for visiting me. I will see you again. God is good. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.